Attendees at the Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC, made it clear that former President Donald Trump is still the frontrunner for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. 59% of the roughly 2,500 attendees surveyed said Trump is their preferred 2024 candidate, but Florida Governor Ron DeSantis came in with a healthy 28%. Every other Republican mentioned received 2% or less in the poll. Business consultant Denise Long joins us now to discuss. Denise, welcome.
Hi, good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I thought it was interesting that Trump actually improved a little bit, I believe, a few points better than his showing last year. Obviously, last year, CPAC was still, I think, fresh, the damage of January 6th. So, it could have been the case that was Trump's high watermark for returning. Instead, it's not. He's continuing to kind of muster his forces to maintain total control over the party, and I have every suspicion that if he runs, and I think he will, that he'll be the nominee. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I agree. I think that he will be the nominee. I think part of what we're seeing in the numbers there are also that this CPAC happened in Florida, right? And I think that maybe contributes to what we're seeing with DeSantis, as well as the ways in which DeSantis has been really coming out hard against CRT in schools and whatnot. But yeah, Donald Trump will run in 2024, and I think he has a good chance of winning.
Yeah. Do you think he has a good chance of winning the presidency, or just I think he's going to win the nomination. I think he could win the presidency, but he would, compared to every other person with an R next to their name, he has a more uphill battle. I think DeSantis would do better. I think somehow this would never happen, but I think if Mitt Romney was the nominee lately, he would win a landslide election, the likes of which we haven't seen in 50 years. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think it depends on their talking points. So there are ways in which, I'm thinking about this also from the Black American voter perspective, right? So there are ways in which President Trump has some, gravitas, credentials within the Black American community with his verbiage, his narrative, and what he said in his previous administration. There are ways in which DeSantis, with how he's coming out with what people are calling white comfort bills around CRT and education, that maybe make him less so of a viable candidate to garner those double digits of the Black vote like Donald Trump has. And for the others, I think it depends on what they say and the extent to which they can work the magic middle, which is where I think most Americans rest, but few politicians are actually talking about, which is where all Americans' needs are prioritized, and the politicians can speak to those in nuanced and very specific ways rather than catering to the fringe.
And so at that conference, he did hint at his 2024 presidential run. Let's take a look at that.
The socialists, globalists, Marxists, and communists who are attacking our civilization have no idea of the sleeping giant they have awoken. We are a sleeping giant. They cannot even begin to imagine the brave and righteous spirit they've unleashed in men and women like all of you here today, and this is some crowd. We broke the record again. We broke the record again. But they're going to find out the hard way starting on November 8th, and then again even more so on November 2024. They will find out like never before. We did it twice, and we'll do it again. We're going to be doing it again.
And Denise, we did it twice. So he's still, I guess, saying that he won in 2020 and he's going to win again in 2024. Is that what you read from that?
That's what it sounds like he is saying about we did it twice. Yes, that is my interpretation of that. And I think, I can't remember the poll, but I think there are still a significant number of the base of the Republicans who do believe that the election was stolen, or that there were some election integrity issues around it. So he is really speaking to them there. Yeah, so that's a whole nother conversation, right, within the party about what that looks like, and given what January 6th a protest turned into, I think folks need to be really careful about their framing around that. But yeah, that's what that was about to me as well.
Yeah, you would have thought that maybe there would be a greater interest, I think, in the Republican Party to shove Trump out the door because they have this historic opportunity to win at every level of the government. They're going to clean up in the midterms. You could have a heavily Republican majority. Obviously, you will at the Supreme Court, you will in Congress, very likely, and then the presidency. And it is imperiled by continuing to humor this one losing political figure, but at no point do they want to make any break. Tom Cotton, I saw over the weekend, was talking about Ukraine, obviously, and he just flat out refused, despite being set up to do so numerous times, flat out refused to criticize anything Trump had ever said about Russia. Wouldn't do it. No figure in the party, unless they're explicitly associated with the Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Never Trump wing, no one else will say anything bad about Trump ever.
Well, that really, I think, speaks to the fact that those who support President Trump adamantly and believe the election of 2020 was rigged or stolen are really considered the base. And what I think you see is political aspirants, right? Those with aspirations to stay within the grace and good of the party are catering to that portion of the party, not necessarily considering the ways in which they could control the narrative and also influence Donald Trump and what he is saying and how he is saying it. I saw throughout watching the moments at CPAC, including, Josh Hawley, the Missouri congressperson's comments about rednecks and such being the base of the party. They're not really acknowledging the ways in which they could advance their narrative and also pull in a lot more voters to support a really sound, robust, diverse, and effective platform for the party. So I'm not necessarily condemning Donald Trump's aspiration and the power in which he has, as much as I'm thinking about the ways in which perhaps the narrative and the framework that people are using to leverage that influence that he has maybe needs some tweaking. I'm wondering who they're consulting with and if they really are in touch with the rest of America.
Yeah, it is really wild how their frame of who they consider to be a Republican and who they consider to be not a Republican is blinding them to the realignment that is underway and the potential that they have for picking up so many more black working class voters. It's like they just can't see what's in front of them.
They can't see what's in front of them and what's been there, right? So we know a significant percentage of Black folks are conservative when it comes to abortion and, LGBTQIA in terms of its pervasiveness within society, but also recognizing the ways in which Black voters, and I would say most white voters, right, want people to have what their families need, want people to be safe and be able to access society and the like. I just find that the narrative and the framework that both parties are applying really needs some evolution in its content, as well as the analysis of the impact that they're wanting to have.
Well said. Well, Denise, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good to see you.
We'll be back with more Rising right after this.